Okay, 8th grade, you're 4.5, working on your warm-up. And let me look at it real quick. Okay, for this lesson, we're graphing linear equations in standard form. Draw the reflection of the figure in the y-axis. So which one's the y-axis? The vertical one. Say you're reflecting across here. So wherever this point is, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 away. So I'm going to go to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 away this way, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be the point here. This is 2 away. And this would be 3 away. Man, my brain is not functioning. There we go. Okay, so that would be a reflection across the y-axis. Okay, so now you need to do across the x, meaning which is the x line? The horizontal. Very good. So you're going to reflect across that. Okay, so I'll give you just a minute to finish that. Make sure you're writing the key vocabulary. We just have one vocab word. Standard form. Okay, so the standard form of a linear equation is represented by ax plus by equals c. And it does have a caveat that tells you a and b cannot be 0. If they were 0, it would get rid of x and y. Does that make sense? So when you are dealing with all of the linear forms, right now you have heard y equals mx plus b, right? Mx plus b. This will go away in just a second. Okay, this is the linear equation and how you can solve for a graph when it's in this form. Standard form is how you just normally see it. So like you could have 2x plus 3y equals 12. This would be considered standard form. And often you have to solve this for y in order to graph things. Question? No. Okay. All right, so let's do our first example. It's so nice not to have to click share screen 1,500 times while we were doing Zoom. All right, so we're going to graph negative 2x plus 3y equals negative 6. What form is this currently in? It's in standard form. We have x plus y equals another number. Okay, so first things you have to do is rearrange this into slope-intercept form, which is this y equals mx plus b. So what is the first thing I'm going to move when trying to arrange this equation, Josh? The x stuff, because the y with the 3 next to it means we're going to have to divide, right? So let's just move this whole term first. Since it's a minus 2x, how do I move it? Absolutely. You're going to add 2x to the other side. Okay, you'll see when you add it to the other side, you go ahead and kind of write it how it's going to have to be, the mx plus b. So we wrote 2x minus 6. So you see how we just kind of bumped the negative 6 over and stuck the 2x in there? That's getting prepped to have it completely written in slope-intercept form. Okay, so now we have y. We need to get rid of the 3. How do we move the 3? Josh? Divide both sides by what? 3. Okay, so on this side you divide by 3, it cancels. On this side we have to divide every term by 3. So 2 divided by 3, just leave it. 2 over 3 is a fraction. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So you'd have y equals 2/3 x minus 2. How come I leave this as a fraction?
Because I can't divide it.
You can. It'd be a decimal.
Evenly.
Right. Can't divide it evenly. And isn't leaving it as a fraction easier to graph? Because it's a slope. So you just leave it as a fraction. You could reduce it if this was reducible. All right, so now we're going to graph it. So sketch this on your... I'm going to move my face, or my lack of face. I don't know why it's not working anymore. I know. Well, there's not a face there. So there's my Bitmoji. Woohoo! All right, so what's my y-intercept? Shout it out. Negative 2. So I'm going to go put a dot at negative 2. What's my slope? 2/3. So I'm going to go up 2, over 3, put a dot. Hate that they do it backwards. And then draw a line, connecting it. Woo! Any questions on how we did this? All right, go do your try-its. You have 1 to 4. I'll leave this up for a moment. Okay, we're going to graph this. We'll throw something at Josh. We have x plus 3y equals -3. Now look at the instructions here. We're going to graph this using the intercepts. Do you recall what the intercepts are?
No, with the letter.
The y-intercept, listen, Sydney. There, we learned how to do x-intercepts. Yep. Elena? It's where they cross the lines. So the y-intercept is the vertical line, the x-intercept is the horizontal line. Do you guys remember how I told you the fastest way to find the intercepts are?
With a calculator.
No. Oh, we have forgotten. Okay, so the fastest way to find the intercepts for whatever one you're missing, can y'all not talk over the top of me? The fastest way to find the intercepts when you're looking for them is to plug in a 0 on the other variable. So if I want the x-intercept, I plug in a 0 where the y is. If I want the y-intercept, I plug in a 0 where the x is. Okay? So, if I'm solving for x, I'm going to plug in a 0 here where the y is. Write this in your journals. What's 3 times 0?
0.
So then x is just -3. So that's where it crosses the x line when I graph this. Okay, now let's solve for y. So I'm going to plug in 0 where the x is. So I'm not going to add plus 0. That's just gone, right? So then I have 3y equals -3. How do I solve for y?
Division.
Divide by 3. So -3 divided by 3 would be -1. So now I have my 2 intercepts. So this is on the graph where my line crosses those 2 x-axis and y-axis. So let's sketch it. So the x-axis goes left to right. What's my point? So I'm going to go on the x line to -3 and put a dot. What's my y-intercept? So on the y line, I'm going to go down to -1 and put a dot. And then I have a line. So you graphed this equation using the intercepts. Okay, that's instead of putting it in slope-intercept form. I could have put it in slope-intercept form. I would have got the same line. Question?
How did you get -3?
For this one? Because you take the original equation, you plug in 0 where the y is. 3 times 0 is just gone, and I'm left with x. Good question. Any other questions?
No, ma'am.
All right, so go do your next set of try-its and self-assess. Go to all the way to number 14. Okay, make sure this is in your journal before you do that. Okay, 8th grade got your journal. Example 3. Oh, we're going to create... Oh, no, they gave us the equation. So, you have $6 to spend on apples and bananas. The equation, 1.5x plus 0.6y equals 6, represents this situation where x is the number of pounds of apples and y is the number of pounds of bananas. Graph the equation and interpret the intercepts. Okay, so since we have to interpret the intercepts anyways, I would graph it using the intercepts, not y equals mx plus b. Does that make sense? So instead of rearranging this into slope-intercept form, I would just plug in the zeros and solve, because it tells you they want you to interpret the intercepts anyhow. So we need to know what the intercepts are. And if we just solve for slope, we won't know the x-intercept. So let's solve. Let's use the intercepts to solve. So you have your equation. Let's solve for the x-intercept, which means we plug in 0 where?
Y.
Where the y is. So 0.6 times 0 is just gone, right? Okay, so I'm left with 1.5x equals 6. How do I get the x by itself? So what is 6 divided by 1.5? 4. So I have my x-intercept now. Okay, now let's solve for the y-intercept. Plug in the 0 where the x is. So that gets rid of that 1.5. I'm left with 0.6y equals 6. What do I do to get y by itself? So what is 6 divided by 0.6? 10. So now I have an x and y intercept. Can I graph this?
Yes.
So on the x line I go to what? 4. On the y line I go where? 10. Okay, the last thing it says to do is interpret the intercepts. Okay, so tell me what this 4 means, is what they're telling you to do. So if I solved for x, which one does x stand for? Bananas or apples?
Bananas. Fine. I don't know.
X is the number of pounds of apples. Okay? So if y is 0, meaning I have how many bananas? 0 bananas, because y is 0, right? The x-intercept says if I don't buy any bananas, how many apple pounds can I buy? Right here. What's my x-intercept? 4. So if I buy 0 pounds of bananas, I can buy 4 pounds of apples. If I don't buy any bananas. What if I don't buy any apples? How many pounds of bananas can I buy? 10. So that's what it means when it says to interpret it. So if I buy, so now if you go anywhere along this line, it'll tell you if I buy roughly 3 pounds of apples, I can buy around 2 pounds of bananas. That's what that is, this line, anywhere in here. They're not round. All right, any questions on how we did this? All right, so your homework is to finish all the way through 16. Okay? You have 5 more minutes before we go to recess.